Okay, I'm going to do this again really quick. It'll just be faster. So I did this last night. So I resined the heart, and then I went over it with the glaze pens, and you can see it's dried. I did a couple of different things. I did color within color. I did dots and surrounding them. I did some blending. So you can see there that I did a little blending with the blue and the pink to make purple. And then after it dried, I went over it with a fine liner to make a butterfly. So I drew right over it without any seal or anything else. And you can see I can rub it and it doesn't come off. And then here I did another flower. Put down a little bit, let it dry, and then added the petals. And then what I did over here that's different from the rest is I drew the flower, so the blue, and then I went and put the pink on the inside. And you can see there's a distinct border between that I did wet with wet so that it wouldn't bleed into itself. And then I added the stem and the leaves afterwards once the blue dried. And then when the blue dried, get this to focus again. When the blue dried, I put a dot of white on it. And on these pens, when you dot the white, it's clear, but as it dries, it becomes opaque. So that was an example of an opaque pen painted over top of a dry glaze translucent. So I did that, and then all I would do if I were to, send this somewhere, if I was going to keep it and send it out into the rock garden, I would just go right back over it with resin or whatever. I honestly haven't tried any other seals on the glaze. Other people can, Terry will probably experiment with that. She probably has a greater selection than I do. It's too cold for me to spray here right now. The weather's too unpredictable. So I'm not going to try it. I just plop UV resin right over top of this as is. And as you guys know, the resin that I use, it doesn't cause any bleeding or dissemination of the pigments. It just goes right on top, and it looks really cool when you resin it. So maybe what I'll do tomorrow is resin this so you guys can see the 3D effect. I might add some words to it, make it a cute little rock for Bella's garden or something. But anyway, I did that. And then I wanted to do it live and show you guys how I did it. I recorded it last night, but I wasn't really talking very much because I was in a hurry. And I don't want to do a voiceover and do a bunch of editing, so I'm just going to do this, throw it out there into the world and let you guys do with it as you wish. I'm sure a lot of you will do your live tutorials, which please go ahead and do. These are so much fun. I learned how to use these. I grabbed them before I started watercolors. This was one of my favorite things to do when I did Zentangle rocks. I love doing Zentangle rocks. So there's all kinds of colors. What I'm using are glaze. These are Jelly Roll pens, but they're glaze. So Jelly Roll has so many different types. There's moonlight, there's glitter, there's some that are two-tone color, metallics, all kinds. So just make sure that to do what I'm doing, you use the glaze. So here's an example of a Jelly Roll moonlight. You see how it has that little icon or whatever that is right there on the pen. So this is a gel pen, and it's glitter, but it doesn't dry on the rocks the same way. You can totally use it on rocks. You just have to, you don't get a 3D effect. And you definitely have to seal it because it won't dry and it'll rub right off. So I put some on this yesterday during my video that I did. You can see the edge of it. It's right there. So I had a whole outline of it, and then 24 hours later I rubbed it and it came right off. So it doesn't dry very well. You could seal it on there, but it won't dry. So, what?
He said, oh.
I'm not talking to you.
Oh, excuse me.
So then there's these that are called Jelly Moonlight. These come in that large set. But anyway, this is just to show you that there's tons and tons of them. But the ones that you want are glaze. And they have all kinds of colors. And some of them, the lids don't match the color of the ink, so you'll want to do testing to make sure you get the color that you want. Like this green looks like an olive green. This is the green I used for the stem on this flower. So they're not true, at least in the darker colors. So, which is fine as long as you know what the outcome will be. You don't need to worry too much. Like this is like you would expect it to be like a deep red, but it's not. It's really, really bright, which is cool because it's a great red. It's just, one of the little quirks of the pen. So anyway, I'm going to do a little bit of examples here. I have a Naked Santorini. This is one of my test rocks. You can tell I use watercolor on it. I just test it for, I use it to test my, the way that my watercolors are, whether they work or not on the rocks, which as you know is my priority. So, all right. So what I do is, first of all, let me tell you, you can store these vertical. So per the company, the best way to store these is vertical. So I keep mine in a canning jar like this. Oops, you can't see that. Like this. And I just keep them capped up, and they work perfect. The gel doesn't run down the way that like a ballpoint would. So you can store them. The best way to store them is vertical with the cap up. Okay. So then, because when you don't use them for a little while, you can see the gel will dry on the outside like it's a little glaze cap, right? So like with any type of pen, you'll want to have a scrap of paper off to the side to run it a little bit so that you're sure you don't get gunk. And then when you're doing it on rocks, and you can do this on paper too, but when you're doing it on rocks to get the effect that I get, I push down there's a little ball in there like a ballpoint. I push down and I kind of let it puddle out and flow. You see how it does that? You see how it's creating like a little puddle. You see the puddle? There, you can really see the puddle. See that? And so when that dries, of course it would do that whether I made the puddle or not, but when you're doing rocks, you have the luxury of making the 3D effect probably better than paper, because paper would absorb some of it. But and I also use these to accent acrylic paint pens, or just any acrylic paint. You could probably do it right over watercolor too. Actually, I have done it right over watercolor, so yeah, you could do that. But just to add like a little cool 3D effect, because it shows up 3D under the resin, which is the coolest part. So yeah, so I just make a little puddle. And then if I'm wanting to like blend a color like I did with the blue and the pink to make purple, when I do flowers, sometimes I do that. On mine, I did this is a butterfly, but I just made little puddles, and then I let them run and bleed together, which was pretty cool. So let's see if we can do this with the flower. So while it's wet, before it starts to gel, I just bring the pen close to it and I press down to make a puddle. You see that? Isn't that sweet? That is way cool. So then it just kind of pulls itself in. And then we're probably going to get some interesting green color. But the rocks that I've made where I use these and I blend them like this, it creates a really cool effect, especially when you're doing flowers and that aren't always, naturally one color or another. And when I do this, I always make sure that I'm wiping the tip off because it does have two colors on it and I don't want the other color to bleed up into the gel that's in the pen. So when I finish, I make sure that I'm cleaning the tip off really well. But anyway, I wanted to show this on camera because I think it's one of the coolest things, one of the coolest effects that I've discovered that these can do. See that? Isn't that cool? You see how it moves around too? About 5 minutes it'll gel. It'll gel and it will be dry. And then if what I do is I let it's dry enough to write on top of after about 5 to 8 minutes. But what I do is once I'm getting ready to resin it and stuff, I let it sit for about an hour. But it gels and then it gets this, not a perfect shiny surface in some of them, but I love the effect that it leaves. Some of them are perfect and some of them aren't. So anywho, I wanted to share that. So basically that's the gist of it. You can, so like this red is dry. See, I put a thin layer. So if I wanted to say, I mean, it's weird because the colors are weird, but hey, if I wanted to put little white dots on that red now, I can do that because it's dry. So here's white, and when I push it down, it's kind of clear. On the red, it actually looks cooler, but it's kind of clear. See that? And then as it dries, it turns white and it becomes opaque. Let me show you what I did the other day. So this is the one I did the other day that I posted. It was my embossing failure, but it turned out to be a pretty cool rock anyway. So I saved it's all shiny. So I saved the watercolor in the background at least, and it looks super cool. I would have sanded it down if I had known I was going to keep it, because the pits bug me. But that's just my personal problem. So this is all the white pen, and you can see the blue where I had the white. And then I went over it with blue to get that look. And then over here, I had white. And then to give it a little character, I put purple dots on it with my purple pen. I put purple dots because I thought it looked cool. And then, you know, there's yellow. There's white again. I used a lot of white on here for the contrast. But anyway, when I resin this, you'll still be able to see the texture of the gel, which will be super cool. All right. Let's see. What else? I think that's about it. There's the little swirl. That's going to dry pretty cool. And now I'm going to feel bad if I have to scrub it off. I like that swirl. That's a great color. Okay. So those are the glaze pens. They're really easy to write with. They're super easy to do script with. I'm a pen fanatic. Love great pens. And these are great for journaling and doing those kinds of really cool things too. But yeah, there you go. They are a little pricey right now. I bought them when they were way cheaper. Apparently inflation has hit glaze pens also. So anyway, my collection is large because they weren't as expensive as they are now. So there's probably going to be sales and stuff. So I add them to my cart and then I watch the price and see if they fall. So, but if you do paper journaling or anything, all of these gel pens are really cool. No matter what series of jelly roll, they all have their own properties that make them super cool. Just make sure you store them properly so that they don't get ruined. And I don't let my daughter touch them because they get ruined. All right, that's all there is. Thank you. See you guys later.